Hey, what's up? This is Illtown Music. On today's beat breakdown, we're going to be talking about A Tribe Called Quest. So one of the fun things about doing these videos is I get to pick beats that maybe not everybody would focus on. When you think of Tribe Called Quest, you're probably thinking of things like a war tour, Check the Rhyme, or Scenario. But in today's episode, we're going to be talking about phony rappers. So there's a lot of mixed opinions about the album Beats, Rhymes, and Life. Some people really hate it, some people think it's okay, some people really love it. When it came out, I really didn't like it too much outside of the singles, but now going back and watching the documentary and knowing what was going on at the time, it kind of makes more sense. But regardless, there was still a lot of hot songs on the album, and I consider Phony Rappers to be one of them. So the beat was produced by the collective, the Uma. Not really sure who did what, but to me, the beat sounds like it's mostly Q-Tip. And before I get into it, have to say real quick, my album Aphelion on vinyl, these are the only copies left. There's only a few here. For some of my fans, I've been throwing in extra breakbeat records as a surprise when I ship them out. And I plan to keep doing that because I do have a lot of doubles. So if you're interested in my album and some cool drum breaks, make sure you hit the link in the description. So as far as the beat goes, it's kind of simple. First, you have the drum break from the Emotions, Blind Alley, and then you also chop a little bit of the piano from the intro. Aside from that, you have that main Rhodes type of loop. And it's not a sample, it's actually a patch from the Planet Phatt, which we'll get into when we start making the beat. Aside from that, you have that really thick wobbly bass line, and there is a little bit of synth piano in the very beginning. And that's it, now for record time. So similar to the last video I did, we're not gonna do the whole digging in the crate sequence because there's only one record to dig. So the drum loop from Phony Rappers is from Blind Alley by the Emotions. This record, of course, is a classic breakbeat. It was on Ultimate Breaks and Beats. Its most famous use was probably Big Daddy Kane, Ain't No Half Steppin'. The song Blind Alley was actually written by David Porter, who you might know as half of the songwriting team between Isaac Hayes and Porter, which of course did a lot of Stax hits. You also might know David Porter for his solo work, including his famously sampled track, The Masquerade Is Over. And that's it, short and simple, right? So now it's time to go make the beat. So first we're going to take care of the drums. So I have the MPC set at 95.1 BPM. And from the sound of the beat, it sounds like the drum break was actually time stretched versus actually slowing it down to make it the same BPM. So for now, I just have all the separate hits chopped like this. So also within the drums, there's another hi-hat that they added. Obviously, I don't know where it's from because it's just a hi-hat, so I just threw one in here. So altogether, this is what we get. Also in the MPC, we have the little piano roll. So back in the day, I used to think this was a sample until I actually got this Planet Phatt module. And once I went through all the patches, I heard the exact one that's used on Phony Rappers. So the name of it is called Dirt Roll. And it's kind of like a Rhodesy sound with like some extra vinyl static thrown in. There's a couple other patches in here that I think Tribe used on that album. I know that there's definitely a horn stab on here. And then also DJ Premier used this patch for an interlude on one of the Gangstar albums. So it's a really simple pattern. It just goes like this. So the next part of the beat is going to be the piano during the intro and during the hook. And for that, I'll be using this guy right here. For those that don't know, that's the Casio SK5. It was one of the first affordable samplers that was available to hip-hop producers. And it has a really long history, so you should definitely check out more info on it. So I don't think the Uma used this on the beat, but to me, it sounds like they sampled the piano stab and then replayed it on a sampler. So I'm going to be using the SK5 for that because it's really lo-fi and has that kind of low-def sound. So we got some Frankenstein stuff going on right now, but that's what hip-hop's all about. So here I got the Nord Stage 3 with this sample patch, Grandma's Upright. It's kind of like a lo-fi piano thing. And then I have the output of the Nord going into the input of the SK5. So I sampled the middle C into the SK5, and I replayed the piano part from Phony Rappers, and basically it just goes like this. So next up is the bass line, and I'm going to be using the Moog Sub 37. So it's a pretty simple patch. First we have one oscillator. I'm going to be selecting the sine wave, and the filter cutoff is right there. And I also added a little bit of multi-drive. So the most important part of this patch is the glide setting. So for those that don't know, basically what that means is when you go from one note to the next, it doesn't change pitches immediately. So for the intro and the hook, the bass line is pretty simple. It plays once and then it repeats again in a lower octave. So it goes like this. And then for the lower octave. So one thing I noticed when I was listening to the original song, during the verses, they're improvising the bass line. So every once in a while, you'll hear a few bass hits, and then there'll be a couple random fills and stuff like that. So when I remake the beat, I'm gonna do something similar. So since there wasn't a lot of parts for this beat, the mix was kind of simple. So first for the bass line, I cut off the high end, and I added some compression just to bring it all together. For the piano sound, I cut off the low end so that it wasn't too bassy, and then I also boosted up in the mid-range so that it cuts through the mix a little bit. For the Blind Alley drum break, I didn't do too much. I boosted up the lows a little bit just so the kick drum would hit a little harder, and I added some compression. For the main loop, I dipped the low mid-range a little bit and I boosted up the high mid-range just so that it would fit in the mix. And finally, from the piano hit from Blind Alley, I dipped the low range a little bit and I cut off the highs just so that it wouldn't overpower the rest of the beat. So this beat breakdown was kind of simple. Phony Rappers isn't the most complex beat of all time. The reason I picked it is because a lot of people think it's a sample, and I want to show that it is possible to take something that's not a sample and make it sound like one, which is kind of what I do with my beats. Overall, the most challenging part of the beat was the bass line. To get that glide the right way was very difficult. And that's it. Let me know what you think in the comments of how it came out. Until next time, peace.